Hey guys, this is Eric Todd from Team HMB, and today I'm addressing the issue of barbell press being so much different than a log press, and how would you go about improving your log press. So, first thing is, a barbell is a lot different because when you clean it, the weight is right over your center of gravity, and so you're able to maximize your leg drive a lot better, get a lot more explosion into it. So I always found that to be the truth for me, and so my barbell press was quite a bit higher than my log press, but I was able to compensate some and kind of bridge that gap a little bit. In my weekly training in the gym, I still incorporated a lot of strict presses and push presses with a barbell as my main lift, because I felt like I was able to get that overload, top end weight, work on that explosion and all that good stuff. But for accessories, I might incorporate some log type work, and what that might look like is I did a lot of log pressing, incline log pressing, and I would do that sometimes just with the log and loaded log, but oftentimes I would add chains to that to help me with some of that overload. And I would also do some pressing out of the rack. So I might do some strict log. I might do did a lot of presses from my forehead, or even just very top end lockouts. And then when it came my Saturday event workout, a large amount of the time my pressing movement for that day would be some variation of log. Not always, because I like to vary it up, so I would throw some axle in there. I'd throw some circus dumbbell in there, things of that nature, keg presses, stone presses, whatnot. But I did a lot of log pressing for, top end singles or clean and press each rep, but, working the technique on the log. As far as technique goes, what I found, particularly when we switched from an 8-inch log, which kept that center of gravity closer to you like a barbell would, we switched to a 12-inch, and it put that weight even further away from your center of gravity. So what I really ended up having to do, particularly when I was at my lightest weight, I would clean that weight as high and tight as I could, and I would lean back, looking up at the ceiling, lean back, get it as much over my center of gravity as possible, and then drive off my heels. Really worked on driving off my heels, and once the weight got over, I'd throw my head through. I liked wearing Olympic shoes for this because it gave you that build-up heel to drive off of and to kind of support your weight as you're sitting back on your heels with that weight rolled back upon you. That's how I was able to have some success with the log press. Another thing that you can do for your log press, I was always more of a push presser with it, and that was basically because that's what I cut my teeth on for the longest time, and it's tough to teach old dog new tricks. So whenever I worked on jerking and whatnot to try to maximize that technique and that speed and all that good stuff, when I got to top end weights, I always reverted back to that push press. But if you can learn a jerk, it's a more efficient movement. Some guys like the split jerk. A lot of guys, whenever you're working like repetitions, will stick with a push jerk. The only thing that I would be careful of with that is don't neglect your strength, your pushing or your pressing strength, because I've seen times in contests where your press might not be your first movement, okay, and if it's several movements in, you might have fatigued some of your core and some of your legs, and you're going to lose some of that speed, and it's going to throw your technique off a little bit. I've seen guys that were great jerkers who would end up bombing out in a pressing event because of relying on that technique, and that technique going away because the press, the log, whatever, was not the first event. So if you're going to incorporate the jerk, be sure you're not neglecting brute strength, so you can rely on that, or you can fall back on that if your jerk isn't there. A couple things that have worked for me in the past, things that I've seen work for other guys, and some things that I've seen that have not worked so well. So hopefully that helps you out with your log press training. Until next time, Eric Todd, Team HMB.